Welcome to the Legal Insurrection Podcast. My name is Kimberly Kay, and I'm here with a very good friend, very old friend of mine, Kira Davis, today. I'm really excited to introduce her to y'all. If you were not aware of who she is and what she's up to, you definitely should be. Uh, so I just want to go ahead and jump right in. Kira, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for taking the time to share your brilliant brain and thoughts with all of us. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about who you are, what you're up to, what you do?
Well, it's good to be here, Kimberly. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, as you told the audience, you and I have known each other for a long time, almost going on 15 years now, which is when I started in this business. So a little bit about
Mhm.
myself. I am a wife and a mother and a writer in Southern California. I live in Orange County with my husband, a college graduate, and a blind dog. And I started out my career in life as an actress. And that's what I have a degree in. And then when I got married at 24, I wanted to be a stay-at-home wife and a stay-at-home mother. That's what my husband wanted as well. So I retired, had kids, and we moved from Indiana to California. And when we moved here, that was right at the beginning of the Obama administration, and things were getting really crazy. And I was no longer working, but had still had a lot of opinions. I've always been politically aware and active. I was born to godless hippies up in Canada, so that's how I was raised, as an atheist socialist. My dad was American, and so I knew I didn't want to see all the things that Obama was bringing here at that time. And I also was going a little bit stir crazy, only being a stay at home mom. I don't really have the skill set, I think, to make that work, or at the time didn't, as the way other women did. So I wanted to do something that would allow me to still stay at home, be be with my kids every day, but have it be an outlet for me. So I started writing political comment columns. I just started writing my opinions, and then people started sharing it. Went to a few Tea Party rallies, and the rest is history. It's turned into a great little career for me, and it's been a wonderful career because it has allowed me to have an outlet and earn a little bit of cash on the side, but also just be here for my kids and raise my children, which I've done, and just in time. Kimberly, I am an empty nester just in time because the world is popping off right now, and I have a lot to say. So, you're catching me at the time when I'm really ramping up, because I really believe that now more than ever, people who are willing to stand up and tell the truth boldly, if it's to 10 people, 100 people, or a million people, I really think now more than ever, we need to do that.
I completely agree. And I mean, we had a somewhat similar trajectory. I was not born to godless hippies, but I was raised among them. My parents are God fearing people, but I grew up overseas and went to an international school that was 100% hippie socialists. But they were the old school hippies in the sense that I don't think they're the dangerous progressives that we see now, right? You know, they're much more classical liberals. So I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot about social activism and how to
Hmm.
use your voice and how to leverage change. And so
Yes.
that became a huge part of who I am and how I've done life ever since. And I worked in immigration law. And then around the time Obama came into office, I was not really politically active. I mean, I was aware, I knew what was going on, but his presence so unsettled me that I felt like I had to do something, but I had no idea how. Went to a couple Tea Party rallies, got onto Twitter to find a food truck before food trucks were a thing. Not that I'm a food truck hipster, but was just looking for a pocket pie. Sounded really good. So, um, and then found out that I could get news before it was ever news. And so one thing led to another. Then I started tweeting, and I was amazed at how much access I had to people and how many
Hmm.
friends or how many people were conversational. And then someone asked me to write, and then someone else was like, "Hey, I'll pay you to write." And I'm going, "Wonderful." And then I ended up deeply immersed in this whole world and have been ever since. And so I love your commitment to your kids. I think that's something that for many people is so completely lost. And I know that my mom was home with us at a time when it was far more common, but I am absolutely confident it saved me from being in so much more trouble than I would have been. And I work from home and we homeschool, and I'm home with my kids. And sometimes it's challenging, but you know what? They're little, they're thriving. We're at very different stages of parenthood. Because my kids are still elementary age. They're little.
Mhm.
And of course, I'm
Mhm.
concerned about what all of this looks like for them. But what I can tell you is that this generation, especially the younger kids, we're very, very involved in all of our homeschool communities and groups and life and all of those kinds of things. This is an incredible group of kids that's coming up. They are tough. They are
I actually
strong.
agree. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I have said often, particularly in the last 2 weeks, that and we'll probably talk about this, but Gen
mhm,
X is really ticked off right now.
for sure.
I'm Gen X, and it just, we've really gone from we don't care to okay, now we care, and now everyone's in trouble. And the reactions that you're seeing, I believe, are because Gen X is really salty right now. And but I have been saying, you guys, you shouldn't be worrying about us. You shouldn't. We're going to set the ship right. We're going to turn the car around and go home, and no one's getting any dessert. Like, we're over it. But
Right.
Gen Z and Alpha, it's younger Gen Z and Alpha that are going to be the real change makers, and probably a lot more harsh even than Gen X, because they really don't care, because they really have been through it. And that was what really shaped Gen X, a generation that was raised by boomer parents who were, and this is a generalization, of course, this is not
Right.
for every boomer out there. Boomers get really upset. When this is the difference between generations. Gen X doesn't care what you say about us. If it doesn't apply to
True.
me, it doesn't apply to me. But boomers get really upset if you generalize. So this is a generalization. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But we were raised by the boomers who were narcissistic, protest culture, felt very strongly about changing the world, but not that strongly about changing their families. And so we were the first sort of mass divorce generation, and we were toughened by that and shaped by that, and it did create a harder exterior. But I think what the kids have gone through, it's going to be even more. So I agree. I have great hope for that generation, because I think that's what we need. We're going to need strong, patriotic Americans. But I have a great hope, Kimberly, for them, because of what is happening right now today. I know this is a very tumultuous time, and it's very scary. I know a lot of people are nervous out there, but we have to hold the line, because what President Trump is doing, this is my personal belief, what
Mhm.
President Trump is doing in this administration isn't just um, making America prosperous again, making America, have the be safe again. It really is making America great again. And this means resetting all of our institutions. So all of the angst and tumult you're seeing in the education sector, that's going to even out eventually, and we're going to get back to educating. We're going to own the education system again. We're going to get back to educating kids as patriots. We're going to own the institutions of government once we're done with these purges, and we're going to get back to a government that is set on America first. All of these things, the tariffs, that all of these things are working together to totally reset our culture, and that's the culture that these children are going to be moving forward into, and that gives me great hope.
I agree 100%. I mean, I knew because I had exposure to several different kinds of education as a kid and growing up, that if there was anything I could do about it, I would not put my kids in public education, especially now, because the
Good. Yeah.
public education I received, at least before we moved abroad, it was just an education. I mean, we went to school, we did math, we learned grammar. I mean, we learned things that had nothing to do with social constructs. At most in social studies, you learned about the basic needs of a human. You need food, water, shelter, right? And just those types of things. You learned about different cultures, but there was no emphasis on anyone being better, worse, or anything. I think we lived in a very unique snapshot of time in our country where there was no race issue, so far as I can remember. And it really was when Obama came into office and spent 8 years trying to foment race wars that all of this stuff really started to get off kilter. But, I have so much hope for this generation. Like I said, they are tough, they are resilient. It is not easy to parent sometimes, but you know what? I've always been pretty salty and headstrong myself, so I can handle it. Um, but it's an incredible generation of kids who have seen things, who are aware of things, who have lived through things. I mean, these are kids who have been deeply affected by COVID, most of them. You know, that upended much of their lives. There's so many kids who missed out on graduations, who missed out on
Mine,
so many
yep.
opportunities
Mine
because of
missed graduation. Mhm.
yes, exactly, because of what the government did to us and what they imposed on us and what state level governments did during that time. And so, I mean, I absolutely love it. I love seeing these kids, you know, and my goal with my kids too is it's something we talk about almost daily is you're not here to please me, you're here to please the Lord. And as long as you're doing that, you will please me. And
Mm,
you cannot be quiet no matter what you see going on. You cannot and you should not be quiet if you see something happening that you know is not right, that you know does not line up with the word of God. You have an obligation and a responsibility to speak up. People will not like you. Like I have established that as something that they will encounter. People will not like you. People will not be nice to you. But we're told that. I mean, everything tells us that. If you subscribe to the Bible as the word of God as we do. And so we're told that you're going to face hardship and people will hate you because they hated God first. And you know, and those are the foundations, at least for me and so many people I know who are raising kids right now, are instilling in their children so that they have a reasonable expectation as they're dealing with this world, as they're dealing with what we're seeing, which is just a tremendous amount of evil that's no longer concealed. I mean, it's always been there, right? Bad things have always happened.
mhm,
There's always
mhm,
been a dateline for a reason because
mhm.
people are awful and sinful and broken. But it's not, it was never so clear and present like it is now. And I mean, we're seeing that manifest in so many different ways. And in some ways, I mean, of course, it's very concerning, but I think it's concerning because we have been lulled into this sense of complacency, which is why we are where we are right now
Mhm.
as a culture too. You know, it's almost like the island of the lotus eaters and the Odyssey, right? Where you just everything's comfortable, everything's taken care of, and that's all people want. And I have seen that for the last decade where
But
anytime
that's let me interrupt you.
yeah,
That
go
is
ahead.
what that is what, um, that is, what the word, you know, tells us will happen is that, we don't fight flesh and blood, we powers and principalities.
Yes.
But what the enemy does is the enemy can I talk like this in this podcast?
Yeah,
I
go
guess.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, go for
Can I
it.
take it to church? I'm
Yeah,
gonna take it to church. That's what I do on
I'm
my
here
show.
for it.
Okay, I'm gonna take it to church. The enemy can't do anything without permission. You know, there's rules to the universe the way there's rules to earthly living. You have to um obey gravity,
Right.
the rules, the universal law, the enemy cannot has no authority over us. Only if we give it. Think of a vampire. Think of vampire tales, right?
Yep.
Where the vampire can only come into your house if you invite the vampire in, but then they can wreak all kinds of havoc once you've invited them in. And so one of the ways the enemy, I believe, gets us to invite him in is to make us complacent, as you said. It makes us, and we've been undergoing this social experience for the better part of 20 years now, but really
Yeah.
particularly, as you pointed out, ramped up during the Obama years, of bullying, cowing, using the mechanics of the law and government to tamp down on free speech and to tamp down on free expression. I don't have to go through all of the censorship things we've been going through over the last
Right.
few years, but the effect has been to silence many voices. Kimberly, how many times have you thought of putting an opinion on your Facebook page where your family and friends are and then said, "Well, no, cuz my liberal family and friends are going to get really upset and I don't want it
Right.
to be like that. I just want." But they don't make those same calculations. They post whatever, you know, lie they saw come across their Twitter. a headline on Twitter. They do it and they don't care about upsetting people. So we have been sort of cowed into this to keep the peace. And a lot of us are Christians. You and I are Christians, and most Americans are. We want to keep the peace. We take very seriously the turn the other cheek thing. I don't think a lot of us understand what it means, but we take it seriously, and the enemy takes advantage of that. So, yeah, we have invited this evil in a way because we've been complacent, and it's why I have always been so loud. I have always been um, an advocate of speaking loudly and telling the truth. Matter of fact, I have this book, Drawing Lines. That's what the whole thing is about. I wrote it in 2022, and I was just
Mhm.
rereading it the other day. It's very predictive. In 2022, when we were in the dark times and we didn't know when we were coming out of it, I was like, look, now is the time to double down. Here's what you can do where you are right now. This is an instruction book. It's not just blah, blah, blah. It's got instructions for you to get in where you fit in and get in the game now, because if we let the truth go now, we're never getting it back. I think this book is also a great, um, and it's available on Amazon, by the way, or wherever you buy your books. But I think this
Keeps it
book is a
going.
great, it's also a great symbol of how, even when you feel it looks like you're losing and everything around you is lost, to stay in the fight. Because in 2022, when I wrote that book, I was running for school board, my local school board, and I lost that race, and it was a brutal race. It almost broke me. The unions came for me. It was a really, I lost. Um, and it didn't feel like we were winning at all. And it didn't feel like there was any win on the horizon. You remember what it was like.
Yes, yes,
And
very
now
much so.
look, not just overnight in 24 in November, the culture changed, but 2 weeks ago, in 1 second, the culture changed again. We're winning. And that's because those of us who weren't discouraged and didn't allow ourselves to be bullied stayed the course. So I just think this is a lesson for political future to come, for your personal
Yes.
life, for your relationship, your marriage. You stay the course and you can win, but winning takes patience.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I think it's something I know speaking up comes at a cost, and it's something I know you know well. I know well. Over the course of my lifetime and even as an adult, speaking up and standing up for what I believe and being involved and engaged in activities and the work that we do has cost me much. It's cost me more friendships, and I use that intentionally, than I can count. It's cost me jobs. It's cost me money. It's cost me opportunity. It's caused me harassment, like literal harassment by the federal government, and an abundance of other things. But what I can say with absolute certainty is that I have never regretted it, never regretted doing what I believed was absolutely right. We have a problem on the right, and this is something that I've spoken about at length too, where no one wants to play the long game.
Right.
No one wants to stick with an issue beyond the headlines, beyond the news cycle, and the left does.
Yes.
Progressivism, like however you want to couch the dichotomy, the other side sticks with it and they are in it to win it. And we're not. We think we have one
That's the
symbolic
miracle
victory.
of Trump.
Yes,
That's why
exactly.
Trump is such a game changer. He sees the game. He's going to be dead soon enough.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
right.
He is shaping in America. His goal is to shape an America that will move on for decades after he's looking ahead. He has the vision. That's why we have JD Vance as vice president, and why he cleaned out the cabinet and brought in all these outsiders. And this is him going, we've got a 20, 25, 30, 50-year plan. And
Yes.
that's what the Democrats have been. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. That's what he's been doing.
And it's the willingness to stick with it, because I have worked in the space like you for about 14, 15 years approximately, somewhere around there, and it was a very different landscape. Then we were still dealing with a very traditional Republican versus Democrat world. We're not
Hmm.
there anymore. We're not, and you nailed it. We're dealing with, forces of darkness, principalities, and we talk about that in my family too. And my kids are very well aware of this, that we're not ever upset with the person for doing something that they have in some way allowed, or they have been influenced by doing. These are people that are hurt. These are people that are broken. These are people that, in our worldview, and I believe is the truth, that need Jesus above all else. But that doesn't
Mhm.
mean we tolerate their behavior just because
Right.
that's their current circumstance. And we
Right.
don't. And we hold boundaries and we say no, and not doing that. I mean, we saw this happen, of course, with World War II and the Holocaust. We've seen that happen with all of our Jewish friends and allies too, the rampant anti Semitism that we're dealing with, and the problem that has become because no one wants to say anything. And one of the things that has driven me nuts, and I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a second, I mean, 12 years that I have in some way, shape, or form been involved with the public and had an opportunity, to encounter the public, the number of people that want things to be different but don't want to do anything is far too many. The number of people who are so afraid of being called a racist. And I'm going, well, are you a racist? No. So then why do you care if they call you a racist?
Mhm.
It shouldn't matter. You should be strong enough as an individual. And if you're not, work on that. You should be able to absorb the blow. You should be able to move on with life. You should be able to be grounded enough in who you are and what you're about, that someone calling you a mean name is not going to derail everything for you, particularly in situations where your children are involved. You have to be willing to stand in front of them and absorb whatever arrows are being thrown at them for their benefit, because if you don't, no one else will. And I think
This
now
is
that
why
distinction, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
this is why um it is imperative for a nation to raise up great leaders, because great leaders make great followers of weak men, right? So you saw an
Yes,
example of that when Trump won in 24. It was the same Congress, the same Congress critters we as Republicans have been dealing with for years.
right.
Suddenly they've got a backbone. Suddenly they're firing back at the media. Suddenly they're strong arming to get the bills passed, to do this stuff. Suddenly they're talking tough. Suddenly they're doing the stuff we've wanted them to be doing all this time. That's because they're not bad men and women. They're weak men and women who need a good leader, and a good leader can change everything. Now, yesterday we lost a giant in the world of theology and Christianity, Vodi Bakum. Pastor Vodi Bakum, um, passed away totally unexpectedly. This guy
Mhm.
was one of the first. He's a black man. He's one of the first pastors and really public figures out there of color going, DEI and CRT are sin. This is sin. This is evil.
And
This is terrible.
abortion too. He is very,
And
very vocal about abortion, just
very
sacrosanct.
vocal about abortion. One of the few people through the LGBT early years, going, no, church, we can't go this way. And a great leader. He was taken, of course, we lost Charlie. John MacArthur is gone. There are some other leaders that we have lost. And I really believe after losing Vodi, this is what I believe: there are great leaders and great generations. Great generations are made by great leaders, but great leaders don't lead great generations. And
Right,
you can't have, sometimes the leaders have to be gone so that the vacuum gets filled by the followers. You can see that happening with Charlie in real time,
right.
as TPUSA chapters are opening up and people are coming back to church. And it really had a spiritual effect for the nation. Um, and that is I believe what we're seeing, Kimberly, is that we are raising a generation of leaders now. They're going to rush into this vacuum and they're going to fill it up. Now we won't have to look to one or two great men to lead us out, but we will be a generation of great men and women who will lead ourselves out, and the leaders will raise up in their local communities, in their schools, and on the national level. I think that's where we are. I think that's where
I
we're going.
I 100% agree, because it's something else that, on to step back on my soapbox for a second, is that there's no one coming to save you. Like, you are
Right.
it. There's no elected official that's going to jump in. Jesus, obviously we need Jesus, but I mean, like, in our realm, in this
Jesus
lifetime.
can't run for president, right?
Yes, exactly. So, there, Trump is wonderful as he is in some ways. He's not going to save us. His executive orders aren't going to get us out of this mess. Congress can't legislate us out of this. There's no one that's going to make the difference like you yourself can make the difference in your own sphere. And everyone has to take that seriously. And I mean, I completely agree. And that, I mean, and you bring up something I know I'd reached out to you about discussing too, which was is Charlie Kirk and his assassination. So I briefly met him 12-ish years ago, 13. Whenever he and Benji Backer, this was at, when I was still in Freedom Works world, um, were in the early stages of, I think, starting TPUSA or whatever idea it was that they had. I only briefly met him, but of course have followed his work, especially over the last several years. Um, and I know you had a personal relationship with him far beyond just meeting him 12 years ago. So, uh, do you want to share a little bit about how you knew him and, um, yeah, if we could just start there?
Yeah, I first met Charlie back in 2015. We used to be on Fox News together all the time, the Steve Hilton show, actually. And Charlie was living in LA at the time, I think. And we would always get paired. He was a young up and comer. I didn't really like him. I thought he was a little brash. I thought he was a bit audacious. And he was just helping, just really beginning to get in with the Trump family. And so I remember every time that we would be together on the show. All my Charlie stories are work stories, by the way. We were
Mhm.
colleagues. I wouldn't call us good friends, but we were colleagues.
Mhm.
And and every time I would see him, he would always have he liked to text the Trumps and be like, "Oh, look, I could text Ivanka and she'll text back." I remember he was very excited about that. And at the time, I was like, it's so arrogant. It's so I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't really know. And then through the years, we were on the same side, but I've always had criticisms for Charlie, particularly when it comes to talk about race and civil rights, and we've always butted heads on that. And I've always, um, I've done podcasts on it. We've had discussions over it, and we would joke back and forth. His thing was, "Oh, you're always giving me a hard time on Twitter, Kira." We were just. He's like, That's what I do. We're on the same side. That's what I do." And in fact, that's the conversation we had the last time I saw him, which was in April at Michigan State. And I was visiting the college with my daughter, and we were looking at it as a prospective college, and TPUSA was there. They were going to do an event, and I said, "Well, I've never been to one of Charlie's events. I've only ever been on TV with Charlie. I've only ever seen him in the context of work. I've never gone to see one of these things." So I made a call and I was like, "Can you get me back in the tent with Charlie so I can hang out?" So they did. They let me come hang out with Charlie, and I got to see the whole thing from his perspective. It was really an amazing experience. You can go to my Instagram account. It's just Kira Davis, Just Kira Davis, and you can. I mean, it's back now. It was way back in April, but the kids were so engaged, even the ones that were there to make trouble, they listened. And I realized that our kids on the college campuses were starving for discussion,
Yes.
even if it was uncomfortable. So when I left Charlie, we had a friendly back and forth, and he was like, "All right, we'll try to go easy on me on Twitter out there, Kira," and um, who would have you can realize that's the last time you're ever gonna see him. I think I'm really struggling with that. I think I'm really struggling with like the idea that there's this I mean, this is so little. I don't mean to compare my discomfort to what his family and friends are feeling, but it just seems weird that I'm not going to see this guy. And I've got a picture of us at that event posted to my Facebook page, and um, it's weird that he's now frozen there. We're
I,
all going to move on, and he is just frozen there, and that is. I think I'm really struggling with that. I'm really struggling with the idea of someone that personally like being assassinated. It's blowing my mind. And that we are in the same industry and we do the same work. Obviously, his audacity was the name of the game. I didn't understand it at the time. Obviously, his audacity was what was needed. I didn't understand that. Now I think many of us understand that. I didn't understand that then. I think we understand that now in a way. I'll just close with this, that now on the other side of this, I am realizing what a privilege it was to be in Charlie's orbit, even as um, in the small way that I was. Um, and uh, what a privilege it is to count him as part of our movement and part of the kingdom. And we can see what's happening from this. I have no doubt God is in all this. God is in all this. And our nation is changing um, in exciting ways, I think, but right now is scary. Right now
I
is scary.
yes. I mean, I agree with that. Um, with my kids being small, just to backtrack slightly, we never watched Trump rallies because I have no interest in listening to him ramble for hours about literally whatever pops into his head, right? So we never listened to these things. For whatever reason, it was on TV. I don't It was straight. I don't know if the kids clicked on something from YouTube. We don't even have like actual TV, right? And it was the rally where he gets shot. And they see this. Well, then we're in the car on the way back from music lessons, work call on the Bluetooth, and they tell us that, Charlie's been shot in the neck. And they're like, "Who's Charlie, mom? Who's Charlie?" And of course, like most Americans, I was completely wrecked for days, even through the memorial service. And after that, I think there's something, and I know because people have been posting all over the socials, there's something about the way that he was murdered. There's something about the fact that you have this kid, this young man who was so vocal about so many things, but really his faith. I think I never really appreciated that about him until um, really shortly before he passed, because again, many of the kids in our homeschool orbit were always talking about him and talking about how they loved that he was so strong in his faith, and everything had to do with his biblical worldview and how he was so kind about it. He was not out to humiliate. There are people on the right who like to go to college campuses and they love to humiliate these kids.
Right,
They
that's
love
a
to
click. Yeah,
they
yeah,
love to be right and they
click.
love to prove
Yeah.
everybody else wrong, and the crowd loves that finally someone on
It's
the
red
other side
meat.
is
I
saying
call it
something.
red meat. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. But it's just gross. That's at the end of the day, it's not helpful. So you've proven your point, but what has it really changed?
Well,
Now
that
you've
was what
embarrassed
was
someone.
so impressive about Charlie, and what is, I now, having known Charlie personally, I knew he was never any of the things that people always
Of
accused him
course.
of.
Yeah.
I might have had disagreements with him about how we should attack, the Civil Rights Act, or, Martin Luther King legacy, but I never, of course, I knew he was never those things, but it was amazing when I was on that campus watching
Right.
it personally from right next to him, seeing him speak so openly about faith, that I realized, oh no, he is really the total opposite of what people say. And
Right.
it is shocking to hear people characterize his speech and his talk as hateful, when you have witnessed it. Him telling, like, I think you should get married and have kids, and I think the love of Jesus Christ can help you, and I don't think you're meant to be this confused and this sad and this angst, filled with angst, and there's hope out there. Like, there was nothing negative ever. Even when people were personally dismissive or rude to him, he was just like, oh, the angriest I ever saw him got was like, okay, thank you. Thank you for your input.
Right.
Like, that was it. You're right. We have two cultures here. Maybe this is a switch of topic, Kimberly, but I
Mhm.
think this is relevant.
It's fine.
We have two
Yeah.
cultures here on the right. We have activist culture and we have influencer culture. They're beginning to merge, and it's a problem. So you and I come out of activist culture. Those are the Tea Party days. Those are the Andrew Breitbart days. That's why we're in media, because we're activists. That's how we
Right.
got here, because we
Right.
wanted to make a difference. No one was telling the stories on the right. Someone needed to do it. Okay, we don't have any formal training. We'll just figure it out. And we
Right.
did. Look at it.
We
I mean,
did.
look at right wing
Mhm.
media. It's
Yeah.
owning broadcasting right now. And um but what happened was, as social media came up, then the influencer space exploded, and you have people like Candace Owens, who I warned people about years ago, and who
Yeah.
talk about taking risks. I took a huge professional hit for that. I was the only person who came out and said, "There's something wrong with her. There's something wrong with the way she talks about Black people. It's
Yeah.
not.
It's
It's
weird.
just,
It's weird. It's always
yes,
been
there's
weird.
something wrong here." And I got,
Yeah.
"You're so jealous," all of that. But what I didn't realize at the time was that really what Candace Owens was an influencer. I
Yeah.
was thinking of her as someone like me, like you, who is an activist and
Mhm.
interested in affecting real change, and she's not. She's just an influencer who's making money off the internet. So wherever the clicks are, she's going to go. That's why she's moved to anti-Semitism. She's
Right.
found clicks there. The black thing, she found clicks there. Just appeals to certain sensibilities in people is what she's
Right.
doing. So we've got this cabal of influencers on the right who are effective in getting out messaging, right? If you want something viral and you need something to get out, yeah, you need the Tim Pools of the world. But at the on the other hand, a lot of times they do a lot of damage to the reputation of conservatism and
Yes.
republicanism and even Christianity because their goals are for clicks, not for the movement. That's the battle we're having on the right. It's not as deep as the battle that's going on the left, which is literally for the soul of that party. But I think when we get upset about the clickbaiters, the people out there who are doing the, the things that are just for the clicks and just to raise the temperature, that's our problem. We have to learn how to separate those people from those of us who are actually working to advance the agenda.
100%. I mean, 100%. That's a conversation, I've had with several people in the same space that we are too, that it's so detrimental to so many things when you have these crazy, I don't want to say crazy people, I'm not going to say that. When you have people with thinking that I believe is dangerous overall, whether they believe it or not, I don't know. I'm inclined to believe that people are inherently corruptible, and there's got to be something motivating them, whether it's fame, whether it's money, whether they're being paid by other interests. I don't know. It's all possible. Um,
Mhm.
when they come out with these kinds of things, it's so terrible, and it's so divisive at the end of the day, at a time when we need unity more than we need anything else. It's divisive. I think it's capitalizing wrongly off of the terrible and horrendous death of one of the best players we had on the right, and not just on the right, but for
Mhm.
the kingdom. And so to come out and to use that, it's just such a grotesque misuse and misunderstanding of the situation that we're in. And I don't believe that people who are leveraging Charlie's death in order to heighten their own platform, in order to cause division, um I don't believe they're on the same side that we are. I just don't, because that's not what we need right now. People are hurting. People are mourning. We have had, like we talked about, we've had 2 decades of complacency. Meanwhile, the world is getting worse and worse and worse. And we've all been conditioned, or the masses have been conditioned, not to say anything for fear of what they'll lose as a result. And, now at a time when everyone needs to step up and everyone needs to use their voice in whatever way they possibly can, enter like from, whatever, this crazy talk about all these other things that have nothing to do with this. Like, have nothing to do with this. Whoever is behind all of this, at some point we will know, whether it's in this life or the next, and there will be vengeance for that, because I'm a firm believer in what the word says, which is vengeance is the Lord's. I don't have to seek vengeance for that. I don't have to know all the everything. And if you are someone who finds yourself getting caught in these loops, and I want to share this because this is something that I've come to over the last couple of months, is there is a line between wanting to be informed and going too far down these rabbit holes. I mean, at
Mhm.
some point, you have
Mhm.
to pull yourself out of it.
Yes.
You have to stand on what you know is the truth, and you have to keep moving forward. Because regardless of who was behind the trigger that got pulled and the bullet that was unleashed, he's no longer with us, right? And the situation
Mhm.
is what the situation is. And we have to move forward accordingly. And at
There
some
are
point,
still people, Kimberly, who think that Andrew
oh,
was
I know.
murdered. I
I
know, like,
know.
every day I talk to people who are like, "Oh, I think the government murdered Andrew because he was doing XYZ." Everyone who knows Andrew Breitbart at the time knows, like, no, he was ill, he was not in good health, like,
He was not
his
taking
family
care of
is at
himself.
yes,
Yes.
his family has asked repeatedly, "Please stop spreading this rumor," but it still comes up. And with
Yes.
Charlie, it came up again last week in some conversation. Every time I see something, I go, "I know the family. Please stop this. This is not true." But you're right. People are so you can go down this rabbit hole. I'm so glad you said that. Let me add to what you said.
Yeah.
because I think I totally agree with you. This idea that if you go down these rabbit holes and you stay there, it can have a very unsettling effect. You'll be giving the enemy permission to sow confusion
100%.
and disorder.
Yes.
My uncle and I were having this discussion a few months ago, and he was really rocked by COVID. We both were, everybody was. COVID opened our eyes to a lot of like
Yes.
the intentions the government has or doesn't have towards us. And it
Mhm.
really, it threw a lot of people into looking deeper down those rabbit holes. I'm one of them. My tinfoil hat is up here, right? I doom scroll through the conspiracy TikTok
Same.
every night. I know them
Same.
all. Familiar with them all. I believe 90% of them at this point. That being
Including the
said,
fact that the lottery's run by the CIA. That's one of my favorites.
we should just do a conspiracy episode one day where we just run down the list and go. But here's the thing. This is what my uncle said. He's 70 years old. He was angry. He was
Mhm.
angry after the election. Not, I mean, he's a conservative, so he's just angry about what we've had to come through. And he said,
Mhm.
"You know what? And I'm realizing nothing that we knew was true. That this has all been a lie. The government has been lying to us from jump about this, about that, about the other. I don't even know what's real anymore. And I'm starting to get angry. I'm starting to feel like nothing is real. Nothing that I believed and was raised on is real. And it's rocking me." And I said, "You know what, Uncle Gerald? So you know what, Uncle Gerald? Been there. I know
Yep.
exactly how you feel, and this is why, everybody, the word matters, because
Yep.
when everything, this is why you have to stay rooted in the word. That is the only thing. It says it right there. The Bible is a
Mhm.
self-proving text. It says it right there that if you that nothing is real but the word
That's
never
right.
fails. The word never ends. Word does not disintegrate. It does not die. It is eternal. It is the one thing. So even if you think, if you've swallowed the pill and you think we're living in the matrix, this is all just a simulation. The thing that is real is the Bible.
That's
You
right.
can count on that in any realm, in any simulation, in any matrix, in any conspiracy theory. The thing that is real is the Bible. So if you're down the rabbit hole at night and you're going, "Oh my God, I don't know what to think about anything. The world is falling apart." Go to the word. There's an answer for every question you have. Every single one, even for the conspiracy theories. They're in there. It's in there. Go to the word. It's the only real thing that you can hold on to. It doesn't change, because when reality is falling apart around you, you need something real to hold on to. You need something eternal. The left has offered us whispers and smoke and mirrors to hold on to. Nothing that's real. Fame, celebrity, gender, all of these things that fade away, that are not real. The only thing that is real and that you can count on when you're confused is the word.
No, I completely agree. And I mean, and it's exactly what the word says too, that heaven and earth will pass away. Uh,
Yes.
but it's, the word of God is eternal. And that has to be, you have to have a grounding point
Yes.
in all of this craziness. There's nothing that's happening that should be a surprise to anyone. I know I have had moments where I get very frustrated. Um
Yeah.
because I just want to be a mom. I just want to spend time with my kids. I just want to raise my kids. I want to go to parks and picnics and, do all the things that I want to do with them. But that's just not where we are on the timeline. And it's just not an option. And so I can get focused on that. I can get focused on how terrible the world is and how dangerous a place it's rapidly becoming, which, let's be honest, it's always been this dangerous. It's just like we said before, these things aren't masking anymore. They're out there, and I mean,
Mhm.
they're saying the quiet part out loud. There is no
Mhm.
quiet part anymore. We know exactly what the motives are. We know what they're thinking. We know why they're doing the things that they're doing. We know why violence has escalated. We know all of these things, and we have to adjust our expectations accordingly. But we
That's
also
why
have the
you
yes. Go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
please continue.
I was just going
I
to
was
say, but that's we have the option to find joy in all of this, and you have to. And joy and happiness are not the same thing, right? Happiness is a choice. Happiness is very temporary. It comes and goes, but joy is just a deep rooted peace in knowing that regardless of what happens around you, what happens in the news, what happens in Europe, which is very concerning, what's happening in Canada, also very concerning, and also places like Dearborn, Michigan. Like there's so
Mhm.
many concerning things happening in the world. I also don't think we were ever meant to carry the burden of the problems of the world, which is, another conversation
Agreed.
itself. But
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to be joyful in what you're doing and whatever that is, like you, whether you're an empty nester and you're ramping up your efforts because now you have the time and space to do that. Or with me, my kids are the work that I do outside of the work we do at Legal Insurrection Foundation. I mean, and I take very seriously having the opportunity, and I do see it as a privilege that I get to spend every day working to push back on the lies, to tell the truth, and to do everything I possibly can with my time here to leave this place better than what I found it, and to be able to
And
look back
even
and
when
say,
you're working, Kimberly, you're
yes,
even in terms of you being a, working, I'm using air quotes, working mom because you're working in from home while you
right,
do your mom job. Uh the work you do, the work I do is for the kids. It's
yes,
for our kids. That's why this movement is so heavily female, especially when it comes to like
yeah,
school board stuff and the education stuff. That's why women are on the forefront because we're the caretakers of the home. And once the stuff came into home, men are supposed this is a symptom of weak men in America, to my mind,
100%.
because men
Yes,
are supposed to
absolutely.
keep the threats at bay, right? They don't
Mhm.
let the threat cross the threshold of your home. Your job is to keep the home.
Yes,
And but if the men aren't holding the enemy at bay, the dangers at bay, and it comes into our home, that's when mama bear comes out. Like when our backs are against the wall, then we do get crazy and we do get, feisty and aggressive. And that's what's happening. So that's why you see, so what you do is really for your kids, even when you're doing the podcast, when you're, consumed
right,
with the working part, you took the job because of what was happening to the country that
right.
you're raising your children in. That's where we are. And this is why I think you mentioned Dearborn. I want to say this because I've been talking about this a lot lately. I think we're going to have to reckon with the Muslim problem
Yep.
at some point. I think Trump knows this. I think he's very
Yes,
aware of it. We've got some things to get through first. But I believe before Trump is finished with this term, we will have a reckoning with the Muslim problem because it
yep,
is an infection. And if it spreads, it'll be unstoppable. We only need to look at what's happening across the pond. But the question now becomes, how do you deal with that? Because it's not just an issue. There are many illegal Muslims in this country that we can
yes,
deport. But it's not just an issue of illegals. You have people like Ilhan Omar who are technically, they're citizens, and we have a constitution and we have religious protections. So how do you battle a problem like the problem of Islam on the shores of a country like America? Well, that means revival. So
yep,
there are pillars that we need to hit that will, we need policy change, we need a strong border, we need all of the governmental stuff, but the final piece will be revival and truth. So this is why it is important. As you said, Kimberly, a lot of us were quiet and all this stuff was coming in. It's because we made all this space. We made all this space
mhm,
for all these bad ideas. So the bad ideas will start going away slowly, along with the policy and the other stuff we're doing. It'll start going away slowly when we stop making space for the bad ideas. We will reckon with the Muslim problem when the Holy Spirit has effectively consumed so much space in this country. There is no room for Islam, and we won't need to worry about trying to figure out how we deal with it with the law. Those people, those bad ideas, those evil intentions will simply be pushed out of the public square, but we won't have room for it. So everyone needs to make room for the Holy Spirit.
no, I completely agree with that. I completely agree with it. And the thing is, these people have been telling us for decades. I studied, I mean, this is a long time ago now to date myself, but I studied a long time ago Homeland Security law, counterterrorism, all these things that were a product of 9/11. I was a
Mhm.
freshman in college when 9/11 happened. And they've been saying outright their goal for the last 30 years is to jump into places like Europe to exploit the system in order to cause it to collapse so that then they can conquer it. And that's exactly what has happened. Like, listen when they tell you what they say they're going to do. This is not a secret. Like, they're very vocal about this.
The enemy
Very, very
can't
vocal.
do anything unless we give them permission. So they tell you their
Exactly.
plans, and then we all go, "Oh, okay. Well, that sounds crazy. Do whatever you want." That's
Right.
permission. That's
Exactly,
permission.
exactly. It is 100%.
Yep.
I wanna get back to this just a little bit because I think it's really important. In the aftermath of, Charlie Kirk's assassination, there's so much that can be said, and I know, there's stages of grief, and again, not at all to minimize whatever the people who are truly close to him are feeling. Um, I think it'll wake many people in very good ways. I mean, there's so many people, and one of the things that has so touched me, and every time I see one of these posts somewhere, yeah, I pray for these people who have not been to church in 20 years, who have never been
Mhm.
to church, who've been an atheist their entire life, who've never read the Bible and have picked up a Bible, who are devoted to something has stirred them deeply enough to make significant and substantial changes in their lives, in their families, in their marriages. Um, that's exactly what we've needed. I know you talked about a lack of masculinity, and this is something I have. When I used to write a lot more than I do, especially for the blogs, I always wrote about this weak man trope, particularly the weak husband trope, which I hate so much. It's all these things portrayed men as being stupid, useless, burdensome, inept, incompetent. And it was all by design, right? If you can remove the protector from the home, if you can make the man disposable, then what you're left with is a society where the feminine is completely out of check.
You're
And that's
left with a
exactly what we have
matriarchal
now.
society.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what we have now when we need a
Yeah.
man to step in, and that's why they hate Trump so much, because he will
Yes.
walk into a room and say, "Shut up, sit down, that's stupid." And people need to be told sometimes that their ideas are
Yes.
stupid. Like, and I
Yes.
tell my kids this all the time. It's like, "Look, I would rather you hear it from me because you know I love you than get
Right.
out into the world, and then guess what? You are gonna be embarrassed if you keep doing these things, or if you keep thinking these things or saying these things. And because I love you, I want you to know that that is not a way to do life,
That's how I
and not
always
enough
felt
people
about
are
my
doing it.
spanking spoon. That's how I always felt about my spanking spoon. I would be like, "Look, this love tap is, this is coming from someone who loves you and is gonna be a
Yes.
lot less pain than the world will give you for doing the same stupid you
Yes.
know what that you just did just now."
Exactly. I'm like, you don't have to like it. You be mad at me. I would much rather you be mad at me. I'm not here to be liked. I am here to be your mother. I am here to take care of you because ultimately I'm the one that's going to have to stand before the Lord and
There's
how I
far
raised
too
you.
many people in this country, Kimberly, that are driven by the need to be liked, including
Yeah.
parents, and there's actually an entire generation of parents now that have been raised and are
Yes.
raising kids whose entire goal is to be liked by their children and liked by other parents. And
Yes.
it's been a disaster, and the whole idea that you have to be liked, I mean, that's it's a whole other show about where that comes from and how long we've been developing that, but it's a cancer, man. It's a cancer. You cannot live your life based on how other matter of fact, the best people come off the
Mhm.
most unlikable because they're
Yes.
forward. So the
Yes.
Obama's thing that everybody loved Obama there. Remember everybody was like, "He's such a diplomat." I never got it, but
I
maybe that's
didn't
because I
either.
could see right through it from the start,
I always
but
thought
I
he was
never got
so
it, but
condescending and gross and
I
just
never thought he
like
was
you
that
know it
well
all. Yes.
spoken. Yeah, I
I didn't
never
either.
thought he was. I never thought he was saying anything particularly informative or interesting or
Mhm.
intellectual. But anyways, that was the read on Obama. He's nice, he's affable. Actually, I did a little interview with him. I don't know if you remember that, but I had the
I do remember
opportunity
that.
to do a
Yes.
Google. You can go to my YouTube channel. I think
Mhm.
it's still up there. It was
Mhm.
a fun little blogger interview back in the day. And
Mhm.
I was part of a panel. He was fun, affable. We had like a fun back and forth at one point. Um,
Mhm.
People would say he's nice, but that man destroyed this country. While he
Yes.
was being nice, he not only did he destroy this country, he created a division that is now murdering people. And
Yes.
and Trump, no one ever describes him as nice. No one ever people who don't like him certainly don't describe him as nice, and even people who do like him, no one would describe him as nice. It positive things they might say is he's forward, he's kind, he's but no, he is off-putting. And
Yes,
he
very.
I think he's a much better man than Barack Obama. The nice people are usually people you should be suspicious of. I'm saying this as someone who comes off as very nice, I think, in
Mhm.
public. But
Yeah.
don't ask me a question you don't want the answer to. Don't
I'm
ask me
right
a
there
question
with
you
you.
really
You
don't want the
asked.
answer to.
You
Yeah,
asked.
if you
Like,
ask.
I mean, you gave permission, right? Like we've been talking about. You asked me, and I mean,
Right.
you get what you get because but you know what? My expectation for the people in my life is the same. Is that I want you to be honest with me. I want you to
Yes.
tell me if I'm doing things that are not right. We all have blind spots and we need that accountability, actual accountability,
Yes.
not pretend accountability. I want people to tell me, "Hey, you know, that was a really dumb thing you did. Do you realize that that could be hurtful? Do you realize that that was not kind? Do you realize that that doesn't match up with the word of God? You're whatever." Like I desperately desire those people to be in my life because I need that. I get so focused, so hyper focused often on certain things that I'm just oblivious to other things, you know? And so we need those people around us to keep us on the straight and narrow. We need those people around us to keep us in check. We were never meant to do life alone, ever, you know? And especially in
And
my
COVID tried
circumstances.
to come in and make us
Yes,
do that. I was in
yes,
church,
it did.
Kimberly, last weekend, and I'm in Southern California. If you go to church here, you're probably in a mega church just because it's just land is so expensive here. You have to have a
Right.
big congregation to afford a
Afford it.
church
Yeah.
in. So I go to a pretty big church. I switched through COVID because my church closed and I was like, nah, gone. These
Ouch.
guys stayed open.
Yes.
They're still paying the price for it. But
Mhm.
we're now up to 4 services. We have 3 on Sunday
Yeah.
and 1 on Saturday. Saturday service and Sunday morning at 8 are usually pretty empty. I go early on Sunday, it was packed. It was
That's
packed.
amazing.
I came home and said my husband and I went to 2 different services because,
Mhm.
he's gotta go to the Saturday night service so he can watch football on Sunday, so he went to the Saturday night service. But I came home, I said, "Oh my gosh, think about what they did to us in COVID. Think about how they tried to kill the churches and they weren't
Mhm.
even secret about it. They left the casinos open, they left the strip clubs open, and they
Walmarts.
closed
Yeah.
the churches. Yes, they
Right.
closed the churches. They tried to keep us away from each other. And now look, we're back in droves, bigger than ever.
Yeah.
Who could have anticipated this? You can't, don't sleep on the Lord, everybody. You don't know what the Lord is doing. You don't know what the Lord is doing, even when it looks hopeless. You
Yeah.
have to stay the course. You draw your line. You get in where you fit in because you don't know the good work the Lord is doing behind the scenes. And out of
Right.
this horrible tragedy, we are seeing more people than I have seen in my entire life coming to
Same.
Christ. This is revival in the land. Did you see Tim Allen's tweet yesterday?
Oh my gosh, yes, I did. That was so
Let's talk about that.
incredible.
His
Yeah.
I'll break this Tim
Yeah, go
Allen, the
for it.
comedian, from Home Improvement. He tweeted out, and you might know Tim's story that he has been a reckless and struggling alcoholic his whole life.
Right.
And he tweeted out, "I watched Erica Kirk forgive her husband's killer, and it gave me the strength to say something that it has taken me 60 years to say. I forgive the man who murdered my father." I mean, I'm gonna cry right now, but, like,
Yeah.
that man has been hanging on to that for 60 years. It has eaten him
Yes.
from the inside out. One of the most successful entertainers in America and miserable for
Yeah.
60 years because of unforgiveness and because of Charlie's death. He found the strength to forgive, and there is nothing more powerful. Like, do y'all see what's happening in our land right now? This is
Yeah.
revival. So this is a scary time, but if you hold the course, I truly believe we are about to enter the golden age. I believe it with
I
everything.
absolutely agree. No, I completely agree, and that's one of the things I wanted to say. I mean, I could talk to you for hours. We do talk to
I
for
know,
hours
we could
all the
I
time.
know it's,
We're in the
getting
same
late. Everyone's
place.
like, "When are they gonna stop talking?"
Yeah, but it's one of those. I mean, that perfectly kind of caps all of this off, which is that you can be focused on the evil that's happening. It's there. I mean, we have to be aware of it. There's no way to avoid it, right? or we could be focused on everything that's happening, the changes that are happening, the hearts and minds that have been, completely and totally radically changed in the last week and a half. I guess 2 weeks now. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. But
Yeah.
it's just such an incredible time to be here. And, and the word of God promises too that he will be at perfect peace whose mind is stayed on him and him being the Lord. And you don't have to allow the chaos of the times, because our God is a God of order. He's a God of peace. I mean,
That's right.
every single time he shows up anywhere in scripture, be at peace. This is the first words that he says, or, it's his angels say, be at peace. We don't have to be in a stage, thank you, of chaos and tumult. Boston Massacre poster. I
Oh,
was just
okay.
kidding.
Lovely. Be
Somehow
at
seems
peace.
timely. Um, anyway, so, but I think we're experiencing and we are walking into one of the most incredible times on the timeline. I know that we have joked. I know I do all the time. I'm like, what is this garbage dumpster fire timeline? Put me somewhere else. Like, let me read my books. Let me, drink my coffee. Let me do these things. But we're here for a reason, And we see that if you look at scripture, time and time and time and time again, Joseph was thrown into prison. He saved like an entire region, not just a country.
Mhm.
Esther saved her entire people. Um, and I mean, there's so many examples of that throughout not just the Bible, but history of people being put in a place of adversity, but they were put there for a very particular time and a very particular reason. And we have a tremendous responsibility. It's not just for me, it's not just for the Kiras, it's for every single person that is able to. No one has a voice like you do. In fact, I think it's pretty amazing that the way that we were created, that every single voice is like a thumbprint, a fingerprint. It's completely unique. And there's a reason for that, especially if you go down the frequency rabbit hole. It makes a lot more sense.
No, we
But,
do have to do a conspiracy theory podcast.
but but there is a reason that our voices are so unique, and no one can say the things and have the influence and the impact that you can in your own space. And it doesn't have to be on the national stage. Who are your
Right.
friends? Who do you know? Who the people you work with?
I'm
The
gonna
people
interrupt you
and
because
it
you're talking about, I
constructively.
swear, I'm not trying
Yes.
to sell my book, but I
And
swear
no,
in
I
there,
love
it's
it. Yeah.
exactly what can you do where you
Yeah.
are right now. I have suggestions, I have examples.
Yeah.
Yes, you're so right.
Just just you have to be at peace with the fact too that people are, like we talked about before, people are not going to always appreciate it, they're not going to like it. I can promise you
Mhm.
though, especially now, there are so many more people who agree with you who are afraid to speak up. And if you're willing to speak up, if you're willing to take the risk, and really you have to be there, this is, call it, there's all kinds of pithy political speeches over the years, a time for choosing, whatever. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. It is
Yeah.
now, and you have to stand up and you have to be brave. And that doesn't mean you're not afraid. You're 100% allowed to be afraid and terrified when you're doing the right thing. Most people are. It just has to become part of who you are and your character, because I mean, it's not just you who will pay the price for not doing so. It's everyone around you. It's this entire country. It's an entire way of life and living, and rightness and righteousness that we are in a literal fight for right now. And regardless of what happens, and I remind the kids of this anytime they get scared about anything, like, we know the end of the story, right? God wins. We know that. Regardless of what happens to us, God wins, and there is peace in that. And so, I do you have anything to add before we kind of wrap up here?
No, I think you put a fine point on it. But before we go, I do want to take a minute to shout out a couple of friends that I have out
Mhm.
there. I want to say hi to Kylie and Lexi. Right? Yep. Kylie and Lexi. Hi, ladies. I heard you're a fan, and I want to thank you for cheering me on and supporting me. And I hope that if you have creative things that you want to do out there and you're feeling nervous about it, I hope I'm inspiring you to just go out there and try something, have some fun, talk to some people. So thanks for your support, ladies. Love ya. That's it.
Thanks so
Oh,
much.
and then wait. Ladies,
Uh-huh.
also, if you're going to get a job in media, this is something you're going to have to know. You never sign off without telling people where they can find you. So everybody,
Yeah.
you can find me on X at Real Kira Davis, on Instagram at Just Kira Davis, JUST Kira Davis. Go to my Substack, justkiradavis.com, JUSTKiraDavis.com, or just do a Google search. Honestly, just do a Google search. Like, I pop up in those top results. I will give you a fair warning though. I am not the anime voiceover artist, Kira Davis, and I'm not the Hollywood producer, Kira Davis. She works with Hugh Jackman a lot. Who knew there were so many amazing Kira Davises out there? But apparently there are. There's
I
also a
love it.
great one in Florida who's the star of her high school bowling team. I get a lot of her alerts. She's great. Congratulations, Kira.
Well, at least you're, I mean, so on X, I'm at Kimberly K, which the spelling has nothing to do with me. My mother did that to me. It's not something pretentious I did. She's
Wait,
also
really? I
Cajun.
didn't notice
Yes.
that. I have
Yes.
never noticed that. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I've
I
never
know,
noticed
right? Well, and
that's so
so,
funny.
but you know, at least out of all the names, mine's phonetically correct. So I
Yeah.
can say that about it. But when you, if I am at Kimberly K as it's spelled on the screen, if though, at least it used to be, I haven't verified this in a while. At Kimberly used to be an erotic novelist. So that was really, really fun. You know, people thought that they were tweeting me or trying to find me, and then they got a very
Wow.
different person, persona, life, whatever. I don't even know. Not me.
Wow.
Not me. So, anyway, but I want to thank you so much for your time, and I want to thank you for everything you do. It is a rough fight out there, but I always appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate how willing you are to share and to jump into the throes of it regardless of what the situation is. So,
Well, thank
so
you,
again,
my friend.
yes,
Thanks for
thanks for
having me. Yeah. Thank you.
anytime, and wish you all the best. And for those of you
Thank you.
listening, you can find this at legalinsurrection.com. Click all the buttons if you like it. If not, I mean, you're wrong, but that's okay. We'll love you anyway. Um, and you can find more at legalinsurrection.com/31. And that wraps up this episode, and we'll see you again soon.
Well, wait, don't go anywhere. Let me tell people why they gotta smash those buttons, because a lot of people don't get this. I know you don't want to pay for more media. I get it. There's a lot of media to pay for out there. I'm asking you to pay for my media. When Kimberly says hit the buttons, that's your free way that you can support Legal Insurrection and voices like ours. That's a free way. It doesn't cost you anything. So you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe. And if you don't have the money to offer organizations like this to keep their voice out there, that like button, it's almost as valuable. Hit it.
Yes, makes a big difference. So, yes, thanks so much. And to everyone listening, watching, however you consume, thank you. We appreciate you and hope you have a great rest of your week.